The warning. The world was quiet, peaceful even, when the first sign of trouble arrived. It was a typical day, with people going about their normal lives. But all that changed in an instant. General Rachel Ford, head of Earth's Defense Forces, was sitting in her office, going over the latest military reports, when something unusual happened. Her communication officer, Lieutenant Jameson, burst into the room with an alarmed expression on his face. "Ma'am, you need to see this," he said urgently, motioning to the large screen on the wall. Rachel turned in her chair, her eyes narrowing. She had been in the military for over 20 years and had seen her share of strange situations, but this was different. The screen in front of her flickered, and a strange symbol appeared. It wasn't in any language she recognized, and the pattern was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was a perfect mix of geometric shapes, moving across the screen as if alive. "What is it?" Rachel asked, her voice steady but with an edge of curiosity. "We don't know yet, ma'am," Jameson replied. "But it looks like some sort of signal. It's not from any Earth-based system." Rachel stood up quickly, her mind racing. Could it be a military signal from another country? A new kind of weapon, perhaps? Jameson shook his head. "We've ruled that out. This is coming from deep space, far beyond our satellites. We're still trying to track its source, but it's moving too fast." Rachel frowned. Deep space. That was a problem. Earth hadn't received any signals from deep space in years. No signs of life. No sign of anything except the occasional comet or asteroid. This was the first time Earth had picked up anything so strange, and it wasn't something anyone had prepared for. "Play it again," Rachel ordered. Jameson pressed a button, and the signal replayed. It wasn't a normal radio transmission. It was deliberate, almost purposeful. There was a rhythm to it, a pattern that hinted at intelligence. But the question was, who or what was sending it? The screen suddenly changed, and the strange symbols began to rearrange themselves, forming a message. "The Galactic Empire is coming." Rachel's heart skipped a beat. She read the message again, just to be sure she hadn't misinterpreted it. The Galactic Empire. Her mind immediately raced through the years of sci-fi novels, movies, and old history texts she had read, but this was no fictional story. This was real. "What does it mean?" Jameson whispered, his voice shaky. Before Rachel could answer, the screen flickered again, showing a countdown timer. The numbers on the clock were ticking down, slowly but steadily. 72 hours, Rachel muttered, her mind struggling to comprehend what was happening. Jameson stared at the clock. 72 hours. Until what? Rachel didn't have an answer. She turned toward her window, looking out at the city below. Everything seemed so calm. People were living their lives, unaware of the storm that was coming. How could the world possibly prepare for something like this? The thought of the Galactic Empire seemed ridiculous, even laughable. But the message was clear. They were coming, and they were serious. "We need to inform the president," Rachel said, her voice growing firmer as she snapped back into military mode. "And I need all of our resources. Prepare a full briefing, and I want all of our satellites focused on that signal." Jameson nodded, his face pale but determined. He knew this was bigger than anything they had ever faced. The room was silent for a moment as Rachel stood there, thinking. Could this be a prank? Some kind of elaborate hoax? It seemed too strange to be true, but deep down, she knew they couldn't take any chances. Earth had never been in a situation like this before. "Do you think it's real?" Jameson asked quietly, breaking the silence. Rachel hesitated. "I don't know, but we can't afford to ignore it. If this is real, we have less than 3 days to prepare. If it's not, we'll have wasted some time. Either way, we need to act." They both knew that no matter what came next, the world was about to change. Rachel could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The countdown was already running. There was no going back. As Rachel rushed out of her office to coordinate the defense efforts, her mind was still reeling from the message. The Galactic Empire. What did that even mean? Was this some kind of spacefaring race bent on conquering planets? Or was it something else entirely? Some group with technology far beyond their understanding? She couldn't shake the feeling that this was real. But the more she thought about it, the more questions piled up. Why Earth? Why now? And what could they do in just 72 hours? Rachel's thoughts were interrupted as she entered the war room. There, her team was already working on tracking the signal, trying to get a better understanding of where it came from. Maps and coordinates covered the walls, showing everything from nearby star systems to distant galaxies. Any luck? Rachel asked, trying to push aside the doubt gnawing at her. One of her officers, Captain Harris, looked up from his station. "Ma'am, we've pinpointed the source of the signal. It's coming from the Andromeda Galaxy, but it's moving too fast. We've never seen anything like it before." Rachel's heart sank. The Andromeda Galaxy was millions of light-years away. What kind of technology could reach Earth so quickly? "We need to prepare," she said, her voice firm. "Call the president. This is no longer a drill. Earth may be facing its greatest challenge." As Rachel stared at the star maps, the countdown continued on the screen. There was no time to waste. The Empire was coming, and in just 3 days, they would know if Earth was ready to fight back, or if it would be lost forever. Preparing for the unknown. The days following the warning were a blur. News of the Galactic Empire's message spread like wildfire across the globe. At first, people dismissed it as some elaborate hoax. But when the countdown continued and military forces mobilized, fear began to take hold. Governments scrambled, trying to make sense of what was happening. And while world leaders met in secret, a sense of unease settled over the planet. General Rachel Ford was overwhelmed. The pressure was immense. She had led soldiers into battle countless times. But this was different. No one knew what to expect. The Empire had made no threats, just a chilling statement of their arrival, a force so powerful that it made Earth's military seem like ants in comparison. In the face of an enemy so unknown, all Rachel could do was prepare. As the clock ticked down, Earth's defenses were rapidly strengthened. Satellite systems were recalibrated, global military forces were unified, and weapons systems were upgraded to maximum readiness. Rachel was in constant communication with military leaders from all corners of the Earth. The United States, Russia, China, and other superpowers set aside their differences, knowing that survival depended on unity. "General Ford," a voice crackled over her comlink. It was Captain Harris. "We've made a breakthrough. The signal, it's not just a message. We believe it's some kind of signal map. We might have a chance to intercept their movements." Rachel's heart raced. "What do you mean? Can we get more intel on them?" "We're working on it," Harris replied. "But there's something strange. We've detected a pattern in their signal. It's not random. It's almost like they're testing us. Each burst of communication seems to match the position of their fleet as it moves closer." Rachel walked over to the command table, where a holographic map of the solar system was displayed. It showed the trajectory of the incoming fleet, but the gaps were vast. Space was nearly infinite, and trying to track something so far away was nearly impossible. But the Empire wasn't operating like any enemy they'd ever encountered. They were sending signals, deliberate, calculated. It was almost as if they were preparing Earth for something. But what? "We need to find out everything we can about them," Rachel said, her voice sharp. "I want all resources focused on studying this signal. This is more than just an invasion. They're trying to gauge our response." As she gave orders, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The Galactic Empire, whatever it was, had vast fleets at their command, but there was no sign of their full force yet. What were they waiting for? Why send a message so cryptic and non-threatening? If they were so powerful, why not just invade and conquer? The unanswered questions gnawed at Rachel as she tried to focus on the task at hand. Days turned into hours, and hours turned into frantic minutes. The countdown ticked down relentlessly. Now only 48 hours remaining. Earth's defenses were prepared as best as they could be. But deep down, Rachel knew it wouldn't be enough. The Galactic Empire's technology was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. There was no comparison between the most advanced Earth weapons and the mysteries of a civilization capable of reaching them from another galaxy. And then, just as Earth's leaders were beginning to lose hope, a breakthrough came. Rachel was briefed in the early hours of the morning by her top scientists. "We've decoded more of the signal," Dr. Evelyn Marks said, her voice tense but excited. "It's not just a warning. It's a challenge. They're testing our readiness, not only with their technology, but with our ability to cooperate. They are analyzing us." Rachel frowned. "Analyzing us? For what?" "We believe they're gauging humanity's response to threat. It's as though they're waiting to see what we'll do when faced with overwhelming power," Dr. Marks explained. "They know we'll fight back. Humanity has always fought back. But what they don't understand is how far we're willing to go." Rachel's mind raced. The Empire was testing humanity. But the question was, what were they truly waiting for? Did they want Earth to surrender without a fight? Or were they waiting for humanity to prove that it had the resolve to stand up to an overwhelming force? The more she thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just an invasion. It was a trial, a test to see if Earth was worth conquering. "We have to show them that we are," Rachel said, determination filling her voice. "But how?" Dr. Marks asked. "They have fleets far beyond anything we can imagine. They could wipe us out in seconds." Rachel stared at the holographic map again, the lines marking the path of the approaching fleet. But this time, there was a shift in her thinking. Humanity had always been underestimated. It was something that had happened time and time again in history. From the very first days of civilization to the space age, humans had always defied the odds. They had an indomitable will to survive, to fight, to persevere. "We may not have their technology, but we have something they don't understand. We have the human spirit. We fight because we have no other choice. And we don't give up," Rachel said, her voice unwavering. The room was silent for a moment. Every person there could feel the weight of her words. The preparation had been fast, and their chances were slim, but Rachel knew one thing for sure. Earth had one chance to show the Empire that they had underestimated humanity. "Prepare everything," she said. "Get the fleet in position. We're not waiting for them to come to us. We're going to show them what humanity can do." As Rachel turned away from the map, she knew there was no going back now. Earth's defenses were ready, but it wasn't enough to stop an enemy this powerful. The Galactic Empire had come for Earth, but now humanity was going to make them fight for it. And that was something no alien empire had ever encountered before. First contact. The silence was deafening. For the first time in history, Earth's military had prepared for war against an alien force, but they had no idea what kind of enemy they were facing. As Rachel stood in the command center, her eyes fixed on the glowing holographic map in front of her, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The Galactic Empire was less than 12 hours away from Earth, and every second that passed felt like an eternity. The countdown was still ticking. 50 minutes, 49 minutes, 48, and the entire world was watching. The panic that had initially gripped nations had slowly transformed into a determined unity. The fear was still there, but it was now tempered by a quiet resolve. Earth had no choice but to stand its ground. There was no more time for questions. The Empire was coming, and the planet had to be ready. As the first ripples of movement appeared in the sky, it became clear that this was no ordinary arrival. A massive fleet of ships, each larger than anything humanity had ever imagined, appeared on the outer edge of Earth's atmosphere. They blocked out the stars, their shapes a blur of darkness and shimmering metal, with lights flickering along their sleek hulls. They weren't just approaching, they were descending. "General, you need to see this," Captain Harris said urgently, his voice shaky over the intercom. "We've confirmed it. They're here." Rachel's stomach churned as she stepped toward the window of the command center, watching the sky unfold. Massive dark silhouettes began to emerge through the clouds, their sheer size causing a ripple of dread to run through everyone in the room. This was real. The Galactic Empire wasn't a myth. And now it was here, hovering ominously above Earth. Suddenly, the communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was cold, metallic, and far too calm for Rachel's liking. "Attention, Earth," the voice boomed. "This is the Galactic Empire. We have arrived. Your world now belongs to us. Surrender now, and we will spare your species. Resist, and your destruction will be swift." The words echoed in Rachel's mind like an unshakable drumbeat. She clenched her fists, trying to keep her composure. The message had been exactly as they feared, short, to the point, and carrying a clear ultimatum. But Rachel wasn't the kind to give up easily. "General," Harris said again, this time with more urgency, "we've traced the source of their transmission. They're targeting specific cities with their weapons, and it's not just a warning. If we don't act now, they'll begin their assault." Rachel's mind raced. The Empire wasn't giving them any time to negotiate. This wasn't about diplomacy. It was about total domination, and they were wasting no time. "We need to show them that we won't back down," she said firmly. "Send out the fleet. I want every available fighter in the air. We don't have the luxury of waiting any longer." With a sudden flurry of activity, the command center was alive with orders being relayed across channels. The Air Force, the naval fleets, and the space stations all mobilized in unison, creating a defensive perimeter around Earth. This was it, the first step in humanity's fight for survival. As Earth's forces prepared for the worst, something unexpected happened. A second transmission came through. This time, it wasn't a demand for surrender. It was a test, a challenge. "We give you this choice," the voice continued. "Send your strongest leader to face us in combat. Prove to us that you are worthy of survival. If you fail, your world will fall." Rachel's mind spun. A challenge. They wanted a leader to face them in one-on-one combat. This was no ordinary invasion. They were toying with them, testing humanity's resolve. But one thing was clear. If she didn't act, Earth would be reduced to ashes. "Is this some kind of trap?" Jameson asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. "It doesn't matter," Rachel replied, her voice sharp. "If they want to see humanity's strength, I'll show them. I'll be the one to face them." There was a brief pause as the room processed her words. The decision was not an easy one. It wasn't just a battle against a superior force. It was an unknown challenge, and the risk was enormous. But Rachel knew that sending someone else wasn't an option. This was a chance to prove that humanity would never bow to any invader, no matter how powerful. "I'm not sending anyone else," she said, her voice resolute. "I'll go myself." The room fell into an uneasy silence. Her officers exchanged glances, unsure of what to say. Rachel was Earth's greatest military strategist, but this was a whole new level of danger. Still, there was no hesitation in her. The Empire had come to Earth, and it was time for humanity to show them just how wrong they were about the human spirit. "General," Harris said finally, his voice softer but full of concern, "we can't just let you go alone. We can't afford to lose you." Rachel turned to face him. "This isn't about me. It's about us. If I go, we show them that humanity will fight to the very end. If they see that, they might just think twice before attacking us." The room fell silent again, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. Rachel knew this was a gamble, perhaps the biggest one of her life. But there was no turning back now. "Prepare the transport," she said, her voice filled with a quiet confidence. "I'm going to meet them face to face." As the transport ship was readied for takeoff, Rachel stood at the edge of the command center, watching the vast fleet above. There were so many unknowns. How would she survive against these seemingly invincible aliens? What if they didn't play by any rules? And most terrifying of all, what if she failed? But Rachel didn't allow herself to dwell on the what-ifs. She had a mission: to stand up to the Empire and show them the true power of humanity. The world was depending on her. As the ship's engines powered up, a message flashed across the screen. 1 hour until contact. The countdown was closing in. Rachel was about to make history. She didn't know what awaited her on the other side, but she knew one thing: she was ready to fight. Earth's last stand. The transport ship rocketed through Earth's atmosphere, its engines roaring as it climbed toward the massive fleet above. General Rachel Ford sat alone in the cockpit, her mind sharp and focused. She had always been a fighter, but this was unlike anything she had ever faced. As the seconds ticked away, she couldn't shake the weight of what she was about to do. A lone human, heading into the unknown to meet an enemy with unimaginable power. Was it reckless? Perhaps, but it was a risk Earth had no choice but to take. Below her, Earth's forces were already in motion. The entire planet was on high alert, with every available ship, fighter, and weapon ready to defend the world. In the last few hours, humanity had shown its resilience, cooperating in ways that had never been seen before, setting aside old grudges and differences to focus on one common goal: survival. But despite their best efforts, the reality was clear. The Empire had power far beyond anything they could imagine. Ships the size of mountains, weapons that could vaporize entire cities in a single strike. The Earth's military, while strong, had no real chance against such an overwhelming force. Rachel's comms crackled to life as she neared the edge of the alien fleet's perimeter. Captain Harris's voice came through, steady but filled with an underlying tension. "General, you're almost there. We're tracking your location, but we've got limited visibility. The Empire's ships are too big. It's like they're hiding their full power." "I'm not worried about their ships," Rachel replied, her voice cold and calm. "We're about to show them that humanity fights on its own terms. No tricks, no hiding." The truth of her words settled deep within her as she stared out at the horizon, the great alien fleet looming ahead. Despite their overwhelming size, the Empire's ships looked strangely distant, almost as if they were waiting for something. As her transport neared the flagship, the colossal centerpiece of the Empire's fleet, Rachel's heart rate spiked. This was it. The ship's enormous shape loomed ahead, its surface a perfect blend of gleaming metal and dark, shadowed contours. No sign of life, no sign of movement. It was as if the whole ship were a living thing watching her. "General," Harris's voice came through again, this time with a note of urgency. "You're entering their docking area. Be prepared. We don't know what kind of reception they're planning." "Understood," Rachel responded, her grip tightening on the controls. "I'll handle it." The transport docked with the flagship, and the ship's metallic doors slowly slid open. On the other side stood an alien, a being of immense size and strange features, its face hidden behind a helmet-like mask. It didn't speak, simply motioning for Rachel to follow. Every instinct in her screamed to be cautious, but Rachel stepped forward, her eyes locked on the alien's movements. There was no hesitation in her. She had a plan, and it was going to work. She knew that if Earth was to have any chance of survival, she had to prove that humanity wasn't just a species to be conquered. They were worth fighting for. They'd walked through the dimly lit corridors of the ship, each step echoing in the silent halls. The air felt heavy, charged with the unknown. The walls were adorned with symbols that seemed foreign and ancient, shifting as if they held secrets no one had ever uncovered. They arrived at a large chamber, a throne room of sorts, where the leader of the Galactic Empire waited. He was unlike anything Rachel had expected. The alien wore an ornate suit of armor, its black surface glinting in the light, but what caught her attention was the insignia on his chest, a symbol she had seen only once before, buried in ancient Earth history, a symbol of power, of a kingdom long lost to time. It seemed impossible, yet there it was. "Welcome, General Rachel Ford, the alien spoke, his voice deep and resonant, echoing off the walls. You are the leader of Earth's defenses, I presume. Bold of you to come here alone. Rachel stood tall, meeting his gaze without flinching. I came to show you what humanity is capable of. We don't surrender. We fight. The alien studied her for a moment, his eyes hidden behind his helmet. You humans are persistent. I see why your species has survived for so long. But I must ask, why? Why risk everything for a world that will soon be ours? Rachel's heart pounded in her chest, but her voice was unwavering. Because we have something you can never take. We fight for our freedom, for our future. We don't stop until we've given everything we have. The alien laughed, a hollow, unsettling sound that sent a chill down her spine. You speak of freedom, of survival, but these are concepts I find laughable. Your species is fragile. You cannot hope to win. Rachel didn't flinch. She had heard enough of their threats. Then prove it. Show me how easily you can destroy us. For a moment, there was a deadly silence in the room. Then, without warning, the alien leader stepped forward, his armored form moving with surprising grace. I will give you the honor of witnessing the power of the Galactic Empire. He raised his hand, and suddenly, the room around them shimmered as if the very walls were alive. A series of strange symbols filled the air. And before Rachel could react, an immense energy field enveloped the chamber. The alien had activated a weapon. Not a weapon of destruction, but one of control. This is the power we wield, the alien said, his voice softer now, almost condescending. You will surrender. Your world will belong to us, or we will force you to understand our strength. Rachel fought to stay calm, her mind working quickly. She wasn't afraid. The Empire wanted to control, to break them. But what they didn't understand was that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its weapons. It was in its willpower, the unwillingness to give up, no matter the odds. Her hands clenched into fists. We won't be controlled. We'll show you that humanity fights until the very end. The alien's eyes narrowed, and in that moment, Rachel knew this was just the beginning. The true test of humanity's strength wasn't in defeating their enemy. It was in surviving against the odds. The countdown to Earth's last stand had begun, and the fight for survival had only just started. Prepare yourself, General, the alien said, his voice cold. The real battle begins now. As the room pulsed with energy, Rachel realized this was it, the moment that would define humanity's future. She had only one choice: fight back with everything she had. The fate of Earth rested in her hands, and she was ready to show the Empire that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The unexpected power of humanity. The tension in the air was thick, the energy in the room crackling with potential. The alien leader stood before Rachel, his imposing figure cloaked in the gleaming armor of the Galactic Empire. The massive energy field he had created surrounded them like a bubble, pulsing with a strange, otherworldly power. But Rachel wasn't intimidated. In fact, she was more determined than ever to prove that humanity would not bow to this force, no matter how advanced or overwhelming it was. You have no idea what you're up against, the alien said, his voice now laced with a hint of amusement. Your species is powerful in numbers, yes, but you lack the key to true strength, unity under one will. Rachel stood her ground. You may have power, but we have something you don't understand. A spirit that refuses to die. The alien's eyes narrowed behind his mask, but he didn't respond. Instead, he raised his hand, and the energy field around them seemed to pulse, growing stronger. The room trembled as if the entire ship was reacting to his will. For a moment, it seemed like the alien leader was about to strike. But Rachel's mind was already working at full speed, analyzing the situation. She'd heard of weapons that could control and manipulate energy fields, but she'd never encountered one firsthand. This alien technology was far beyond anything Earth had. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that she had something they didn't: Humanity's ingenuity, its adaptability. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the growing hum of the energy field. Your technology may be advanced, but it's nothing compared to what we can do when we put our minds together. We're not just a species that follows orders. We're a species that fights, adapts, and wins against all odds. The alien paused, a flicker of something almost like doubt crossing his face. It was subtle, but Rachel caught it. He had underestimated humanity's resolve. His arrogance had led him to believe that his power would break her, but it was becoming clear that the opposite was true. The more he tried to control, the more humanity would push back. "You think your willpower is enough?" the alien asked, almost mockingly. "Do you think that sheer force of will can defeat the Empire? We have crushed entire civilizations. What makes you think you will be any different?" Rachel didn't flinch. "Because we've done it before." The room was silent for a moment. The alien leader's expression remained unreadable, but Rachel could feel his uncertainty growing. What he didn't understand was that humanity had faced impossible odds before. They had survived against overwhelming forces, natural disasters, wars, and even their own mistakes. But in the end, they had always found a way to overcome. And that was the power the Empire had failed to account for: human resilience. The alien leader's armor shifted as he took a step back, seemingly considering her words. But Rachel knew this moment wouldn't last long. They were both playing a dangerous game, one that would decide the fate of Earth. He needed to break her, break humanity's spirit, before they could pose a real threat. But Rachel wasn't just fighting for her own survival. She was fighting for every person on Earth. "I'm not going to let you destroy my world," she said, her voice calm, but filled with purpose. "If you want Earth, you'll have to fight for it. And you'll have to fight harder than you've ever fought before." The alien stared at her, his helmeted face unreadable. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the energy field around them intensified, its pulse reaching an almost unbearable frequency. Rachel's body was pressed back, but she held her ground, her eyes locked on the alien leaders. In that moment, something inside her clicked. The fear, the doubt, everything that had been clouding her mind until now disappeared. She understood now. The alien was relying on raw power, on sheer force. But humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its ability to overpower. No, it was in its adaptability, in its ability to think outside the box, to turn the tide in ways no one expected. "Your power is nothing without understanding," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "And you don't understand us. Not yet. But you will." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small, unassuming device, a prototype that Earth's top engineers had been working on, a last-ditch effort to level the playing field against an enemy they couldn't fully comprehend. It wasn't much, but it was enough to disrupt the aliens' control over the energy field. Rachel activated the device, and in an instant, the energy field flickered. The alien leader's confident stance faltered as the field began to lose its strength, destabilizing in real time. The power he had so easily manipulated now turned against him. "No," the alien roared, his voice filled with both surprise and fury. But it was too late. The device had done its job. In that instant, Rachel saw the opening she needed. She lunged forward, using the distraction to her advantage. The alien leader was caught off guard, his defenses faltering. The air around them crackled with energy, but Rachel's determination was stronger than any weapon. She was fighting for more than just herself. She was fighting for every single person on Earth. "You don't get to decide our fate," she said, her voice fierce. "Humanity will decide. And we will fight." The alien leader stepped back, his body shifting as he prepared to retaliate. But this time, Rachel wasn't alone. The signal she had sent out earlier, when she had first stepped aboard the transport, had reached Earth. The world's military forces, unified and determined, had been watching, waiting for the moment when Rachel would need their support. As the flagship's communication system buzzed to life, The faint sound of Earth's forces echoed through the command room, joining Rachel's resolve. The people of Earth had heard her words. They had felt her strength. And now, they were ready to fight. The alien leader snarled, realizing that Rachel had unleashed something far more dangerous than he had anticipated. It wasn't just her, it was the entire human race, united, resilient, and unstoppable. The fight had just begun, and for the first time, the Galactic Empire was beginning to understand. Humanity would not be defeated. Not today. Not ever. The battle for Earth's survival. The fight had begun in earnest. Outside the massive flagship, Earth's forces were rallying. The time for diplomacy was long past. In the blink of an eye, Earth had gone from scrambling to defend itself against an unknown foe to launching a full-scale counteroffensive. General Rachel Ford had sparked something greater than a rebellion. She had ignited the unbreakable spirit of humanity. Now, the galaxy would learn what it meant to challenge the indomitable will of humankind. Rachel stood in the heart of the alien flagship, her eyes locked onto the alien leader, who had staggered back from her successful disruption of his energy field. He was furious, but there was something else in his eyes now. Fear. It was subtle, barely perceptible, but it was there. The mighty empire had made a critical mistake, underestimating humanity's ability to fight back. "You've made a grave mistake, General," the alien leader hissed, recovering quickly. He raised his hand, and once more, the chamber pulsed with dark energy. But this time, Rachel didn't hesitate. She had the upper hand. "I don't think you understand," she said, stepping forward, a grim smile on her face. "This isn't a fight you're going to win." The alien's eyes narrowed beneath his helmet. He had no choice but to acknowledge her words. "You still believe you can stop us?" His voice dripped with contempt. "You have no chance against the full might of the Empire." Rachel's hands tightened around the edges of her control device, ready to strike again. But before she could act, a new voice boomed through the chamber, cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. "General Ford, we've engaged their fleet." It was Captain Harris's voice, filled with both urgency and a hint of excitement. "The first wave of fighters has launched from Earth's defense grid. We're taking the fight to them." Rachel's heart raced. The Empire was massive, and their technology was far beyond anything Earth had, but humanity had never been one to shy away from an impossible fight. And now, for the first time, the aliens could see the full force of what they had provoked. "Good," Rachel said, her eyes hardening. "Keep them engaged, Harris. Keep them distracted." The alien leader's frustration was growing. The energy field around him sputtered, and then ignited again with a loud crackle. "You cannot win, human. Even now, my forces are enacting the final phase of the invasion. It is too late for you." "You're wrong," Rachel said, her voice resolute. "You're too late." Before the alien could respond, a deafening roar echoed through the flagship, shaking the walls of the chamber. The sound of battle was everywhere. Explosions rocked the ship, and distant shouts of combat filled the air. The flagship's powerful defenses were being put to the test as Earth's forces, using every last bit of humanity's ingenuity and courage, launched a relentless offensive. Despite their advanced weapons, the Empire was unprepared for the ferocity with which Earth's fighters attacked. The alien ships, large and imposing as they were, couldn't predict humanity's unorthodox strategies. Humans fought like cornered animals, striking with creativity and desperation. Earth's forces had only one thing on their side. They had something worth fighting for. General Ford watched as the alien leader's demeanor shifted once again. For all his arrogance, the doubt was creeping into his expression. He had thought Earth's defenses would crumble in the face of their overwhelming power, but they hadn't. Instead, they had pushed back with everything they had. "You're wasting your time," the alien snarled. "My fleet is more advanced than anything your species can comprehend. It's only a matter of time before—" He didn't finish the sentence. A loud blast rang out, and the walls around them trembled. The alien's eyes widened in shock, as the flagship's power systems began to fail. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice tinged with panic. "The Empire underestimated one thing," Rachel said, her lips curling into a determined smile. "They didn't realize that humanity's greatest weapon is its unpredictability. We've been fighting for survival since the dawn of time, and we'll keep fighting no matter what you throw at us." The alien leader raised his hand to summon more energy, but before he could act, the entire flagship shook violently, as if it were about to tear apart. The power source, damaged in the previous battle, was now unstable. Sparks flew from the ceiling, and alarms began blaring throughout the ship. "This ship is going to explode," the alien leader hissed, his voice no longer filled with the same confidence. It was now tinged with desperation. Rachel didn't flinch. "Then you'd better leave before it does." In that moment, the alien's composure shattered. He turned toward the door, and Rachel didn't hesitate. She reached for the control panel beside her, sending a shockwave through the room that disrupted the alien's remaining energy fields. The alien leader faltered, his footing unsteady. "No," he shouted. "You cannot." But before he could complete the sentence, the room's gravity shifted. The floor beneath Rachel's feet stabilized just long enough for her to make a final push, sending the alien sprawling back toward the door. The alien leader looked up, fury in his eyes. But in that instant, the entire ship trembled with a force so great that it rattled the very foundation of the Empire's flagship. Earth's forces had struck a fatal blow, hitting the Empire where it hurt most: their pride. The alien leader let out a guttural snarl of defeat, realizing that he was no longer in control. The flagship was lost, and for the first time, Earth had the upper hand. Outside the flagship, the battle raged on. Earth's fighters continued to press their advantage. The alien fleet, though vast and formidable, began to falter as Earth's military forces adapted, exploiting every weakness they had learned over the past few days. The Empire had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they were paying the price. General Ford watched the explosions in the distance through the viewing window, her heart racing. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had turned. The Galactic Empire had underestimated them. They had thought they could break Earth with a single message, with a single show of force. Now they were learning the hard way that humanity's greatest strength was its refusal to quit. The fight for Earth's survival wasn't over, but for the first time, General Rachel Ford felt the spark of hope. And that hope burned brighter than any weapon the Empire could throw at them. The final decision. The aftermath of the battle was both chaotic and strangely serene. The once mighty flagship of the Galactic Empire, now crippled by Earth's surprise offensive, drifted in the cold vacuum of space, its energy systems sputtering as it began to break apart. General Rachel Ford stood at the command console, watching as Earth's forces circled the wreckage, ensuring that the final remnants of the alien fleet were wiped out. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and it had paid the price. Rachel's breath came in short bursts. Her body was exhausted, her mind reeling from the enormity of what had just transpired. She had led humanity into a fight against an enemy that had seemed unstoppable, yet here she stood, victorious. But even as the alien forces retreated, she knew that the war was far from over. The Galactic Empire was not a single entity. It was a vast, unstoppable force that controlled many star systems. Earth's survival was a victory, but it had also set the stage for something much larger. "General," Captain Harris's voice crackled over the comm, pulling Rachel from her thoughts. "We've successfully disabled the rest of their fleet. Their command structure is in disarray, but the Empire won't just let this go." "I know," Rachel replied, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "This is only the beginning." The message had been clear. The Galactic Empire would not stop until they had subjugated humanity or destroyed it entirely. But Earth had done something the Empire hadn't expected. They fought back, not just with their weapons, but with a tenacity that could not be broken. The alien leader had underestimated them, had believed that their overwhelming firepower would crush humanity into submission. What they hadn't counted on was humanity's will to survive, its unyielding refusal to give up. Rachel stared out into the stars. For a brief moment, it felt like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Earth had won this battle, but there was no way to know what the next one would bring. Would the Empire regroup and return in force? Or had their defeat on Earth sent a message across the stars that humanity was not to be trifled with? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden flare of light in the distance. At first, it was a flicker, something small, perhaps a glitch in the system. But then it grew, expanding rapidly, consuming the sky. Rachel's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't a star, nor was it a ship. It was a message. "General Ford," Harris's voice came through again, but this time it was shaky. This isn't over. The Empire, they've just activated a fail-safe, a final weapon. It's coming from their deepest stronghold, beyond the outer rim. If we don't stop it. "I know," Rachel said, already knowing what had to be done. The Empire's final strike, this weapon, was a threat unlike anything Earth had ever seen, and it was the last card they had to play. They would have to face it head-on, or humanity would pay the ultimate price. The enemy had underestimated Earth's resilience once, but this time, Rachel couldn't afford to make the same mistake. She needed to act, to take the fight to the heart of the Empire before the final weapon could be activated. "Get our fleet ready," Rachel ordered, her voice firm. "I'll be leading the charge. Prepare the team. We don't have much time." The journey to the Empire's stronghold was a race against time. As the fleet moved toward the distant corner of the galaxy, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The Empire wasn't finished with them. They couldn't be. But neither could Earth afford to wait for them to regroup and plan their next strike. The final weapon, they learned, was a massive planet-destroying device capable of obliterating entire solar systems. It had been hidden in the outer reaches of the galaxy, away from prying eyes. The Empire had kept it as a last resort weapon, but the failure of their forces on Earth had forced them to activate it, to use it as their final tool of destruction. As Earth's fleet neared the stronghold, Rachel's heart pounded in her chest. The stakes had never been higher. The future of humanity rested on their ability to stop the weapon before it was too late. "We're entering their space," Harris reported, his voice tight with anticipation. "We have only one chance to disable the weapon. If we fail, we'll never get another shot." Rachel nodded, her gaze never leaving the advancing stronghold. It was massive, far larger than any ship or station they had encountered before, and it was heavily fortified, its defenses impenetrable, its weapons capable of taking down entire fleets with a single shot. "Keep the fleet tight," she said. "We fight as one." The assault began immediately. Earth's fleet poured forward, launching everything they had at the stronghold. Missiles and laser fire cut through the darkness of space, but the Empire's defenses were fierce. Explosions erupted in every direction as ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. Rachel's ship, leading the charge, plunged toward the heart of the enemy's stronghold, narrowly avoiding fire from the station's cannons. Every muscle in her body was tense, every thought focused on one thing: stopping the weapon. "We're almost there," Harris said. "Prepare for the final assault." Rachel glanced at the countdown timer ticking down on the screen. They had minutes, just minutes, before the weapon would be activated. They had no choice but to risk everything in a last-ditch effort to stop it. "Brace yourselves," Rachel said. "This is it." With a final, desperate push, Earth's fleet broke through the final wave of defenses, reaching the core of the stronghold. Rachel's ship dove straight toward the weapon, locking onto its vulnerable point. Her hands flew across the controls, the ship shaking with every shot fired from the enemy's last-ditch defenses. "We're in," Rachel shouted. "Target locked." With a single final command, the device fired. The weapon's core exploded in a flash of light, and the entire station shuddered. Silence. The stronghold, the weapon, and everything the Empire had hoped to use to destroy Earth were gone. Back on Earth, the news was met with disbelief. The Galactic Empire's final weapon had been destroyed, and the remnants of their forces were scattered across the galaxy. Earth had won, not just a battle, but a war that seemed unwinnable from the start. General Rachel Ford stood at the center of the command center, her body sore from the stress of the last few days. But as the victory celebrations began across the world, Rachel's mind was quiet. This wasn't the end. The Galactic Empire was gone for now, but the universe was vast, and Earth had only just begun to prove that it could hold its own in the cosmic arena. They had faced an unstoppable force and had emerged victorious. But the question remained, what would Earth do next? Rachel looked out the window, beyond the atmosphere, toward the stars. The fight for Earth's survival had been won, but now, humanity faced a new horizon. A horizon full of possibilities, full of unknowns. One thing was clear, though. Earth had proven its worth, and it wasn't going to back down. Humanity's greatest strength, Rachel whispered to herself, is its will to survive, and we will keep fighting.